And welcome back to another Pokemon Teens video. Now, today's video doesn't come from anyone. This one comes from my own mind. I'm sure someone would have given me the suggestion at some point, but I also have a personal list of characters that I keep on the side to basically do videos of. And one of the characters that I'm like, okay, you know what? With their movie coming out recently, I just want to talk about them because I love talking about it. If we are to anthropomorphize Godzilla into a humanoid character, down to our human size, and give him a Pokemon team, what would Godzilla's Pokemon team be? So when looking at Godzilla, we are going to try to look at Godzilla throughout his entire history. Showa, Heisei, Legendary, Shin, anime, the works. But, I mean, right off the bat, that does pose a bit of a problem. Obviously, he's a giant monster. He's not a person. He does have personality, he has traits, but more importantly, there are aspects of Godzilla that just don't translate into Pokemon very well. For example, the fact that almost in every incarnation on some level, he's radioactive. Like, especially in Showa and Heisei, he is a radioactive monster. He leaves the entire area that he travels in uninhabitable by the amount of radiation he puts out. Also, I mean, there's also iterations that there's just, you're going to see no reference really to the comic versions of Godzilla because there's really nothing that can, there really isn't anything that the comic brings that's unique enough that it would stand out as a particular Pokemon on Godzilla's team. I also had to be very careful when looking at relationships that could represent a Pokemon on Godzilla's team, and not just look at, well, he's got an enemy in Ghidorah, so Hydreigon's got to be on his team. Well, he's got an enemy in Rodan, so Aerodactyl's got to be on his team. Well, he's got an enemy in Mechagodzilla, so Duraludon's got a team. Well, he's got an enemy in this and this and that. Then I'm just making a team that's not composed of Godzilla, but composed of Godzilla's enemies. That's a completely different type of Pokemon team video. So I did have to be really tricky and careful about it. But let's get into it. So the first Pokemon that I think, let's get the very obvious one out of the way. First Pokemon that was on the team, Tyranitar. It's among the closest to a straight Godzilla Pokemon we have. Although, if you ever watch Lox and Goggins' video on Kaiju Pokemon, apparently Tyranitar does also resemble another Kaiju. I think it's a Korean-based Kaiju. I can't remember the name of it. Also very well to boot. But let's be honest, it is very much a Godzilla-inspired Pokemon to some degree. Kaiju overall. Tyrannosaurus, Kaiju, the whole works. But, I mean, Tyranitar, it's green. It can learn Hyper Beam, which can stand in as Godzilla's atomic breath. So that one was kind of a no-brainer. So now we go into a bit more of the obscure. So, not obscure, but I had to think more on it. And one of them I took from the Legendary idea. And that's some of the other Godzilla incarnations, but the Legendary idea that Godzilla has actually been around for millions of years. It's an ancient species of megafauna, titans, as they're called in the Legendary universe, that existed at a higher in a world that had a higher level of radiation that they fed on. And I wanted a Pokemon that's okay, an old ancient Pokemon. Godzilla's the king of monsters. So why don't I go with the Tyrant King of Pokemon, the Tyrantrum? Tyrantrum, I think, works in this sense that it's a Tyrannosaur reptilian kind of dinosaur-esque Pokemon, like Godzilla is a dinosaur-esque kaiju. But it's, it was kind of the king of the Pokemon back. It was the ancient Tyrant King. There's a reason it's called Tyrantrum. It was a tyrant that threw tantrums, and it is basically a T-Rex. Which is the Tyrant Lizard King, as the name suggests. That being said, we've now found dinosaurs bigger and more powerful than Tyrannosaurus, but still, it ultimately stands, I think, as a decent representative for that. One thing we also got from the Legendary movies, and it does show up also a bit more in the Showa era, where Godzilla had to team up with Mothra a few times. Now, most of the time Godzilla teamed up with Mothra, it was Mothra in her larval form. But in Godzilla, the Legendary version of Godzilla, we did get Mothra, apparently they had a symbiotic relationship, where Mothra gave her life, helped Godzilla reach his burning state, and ultimately beat Ghidorah. So I did want a Pokemon that represented Mothra. And honestly, Volcarona is, I think, the best Pokemon we have for Mothra at this time. I mean, you could go with Dynamax version Butterfree, but I wouldn't. I suppose you could now say it, because it does have spore attacks. Mothra has spore attacks, but I liked Volcarona better because Mothra is considered an extremely powerful kaiju to boot. Because Mothra has its own movie series as well, where it also takes on Ghidorah and other monsters as well. Add on to the fact that in Godzilla, King of the Monsters, we see Mothra's wings in the atomic wave that Godzilla throws out to kill Ghidorah. And therefore, you add in the fiery aspect of that as well. And Volcarona, I think, really actually fits very well with the relationship with Godzilla. So for Godzilla, I put Volcarona to represent Mothra. Godzilla is also considered many times some sort of equalizer and balancer in the kaiju world, particularly again in the Legendary series, but also in the anime series as well. While Godzilla was considered a massive threat, and threw almost humanity out of Earth, kicked humanity out, Godzilla was also basically something that was a representation of nature and the balance and the equalizer of nature itself. Even the song in the Blue Oyster Cult, history shows again and again how nature points out the follies of man. Now, obviously, Godzilla in Showa and Heisei is also more of a product of radiation, tests and things along those lines. But at the same time, that's not to say that he still isn't a balancer when it comes to nature. So I wanted a Pokemon that was kind of nature's equalizer, if you will. And that fell in the form of Zygarde, particularly Zygarde complete form, because it really is the kind of balancer of the ecosystem at that point for the Pokemon world. It is. I mean, you have to get all the 100% Korg Zygardes in order to do that, but it is the complete. It is the complete package when it comes to a Pokemon that represents the balance between nature and man to some degree. And it is also an extremely powerful Pokemon. Being a dragon helps. The dragon type certainly aids in this. As Godzilla very much is designed somewhat after a dinosaur-esque dragon. So ultimately, I thought Zygarde complete form really kind of fit the marker there. Add on to the fact that I feel it's a bit closer to Godzilla Earth than something like Legendary's Godzilla. It gives you due to this just sheer size, power, and kind of, if I remember correctly, it can make energy fields. So I do feel that it was the better representation there. So now we're into our last two Pokemon. Now, this next Pokemon, I am not going to lie, I struggled with this Pokemon. Because I wanted something to represent the aquatic aspect of Godzilla. And basically every version of Godzilla, save the anime, and even then, to some degree, the anime, but mostly Godzilla got so huge and fused with the Earth at that point that water wasn't really a factor. But in every other version, the comics, Shin, Legendary, particularly Legendary, but Showa, Heisei, even the 99 film, the Millennium series, Godzilla is described as being a very aquatic animal. In fact, Godzilla is described as being primarily aquatic, but obviously he's capable of traveling on land too. So I wanted a Pokemon that kind of represented that. But when looking through all my water Pokemon options, I'm like, there really isn't a good Godzilla option. There was Palkia, a dragon water type, but I'm like, if I'm going to be honest, in a little spoiler, he'll fit better on a space Godzilla team than he would on an actual Godzilla team, given the actual nature of Palkia being in this Pokemon of space. So I'm like, nah, and it's despite having water, there's nothing really aquatic about it. So it doesn't live in water or anything like that. So I didn't see it being on Godzilla's team. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to branch out a little bit, look at other things. I'm like, okay, this, not that, no, and then finally I'm like, well, it's not perfect, but it does give me something that I am lacking here in the team. And that is the kind of toxic aspect of Godzilla that I mentioned earlier. The idea that Godzilla emits so much radiation that it just walking through Tokyo made the entire area uninhabitable. Now, there aren't a lot of Pokemon that are that toxic and that could still fit the water theme. But I did ultimately come with dry algae. Now, why dry algae? Well, it's a dragon type, first and foremost. It is an aquatic Pokemon, despite the fact that no longer holds the water type. And it is a poison type, which does lend the toxicity of the radioactive nature of Godzilla to some degree. Now, is it a perfect fit? No. Would I be willing to substitute it if I heard someone give me a better suggestion? Yeah, that would probably be the one big. If I were to substitute any of the Pokemon I got on the team, including number 6, it would be Dryalgae. I will say that. But I do feel it's not the worst Pokemon to be putting on the team. There are worse options I could have gone with. So for what it's worth, I'll go with Dryalgae for the number 5 spot. But now we hit the big one. And this was actually kind of obvious to me as one of the Pokemon that I'm like, okay, a Godzilla team, this Pokemon has to be there. And then I realized, oh, not only does this Pokemon need to be there, but it gives me access to a thing of Godzilla that needs to be addressed on this, and that's Burning Godzilla. And just so happens that when Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire came, they didn't just give the Godzilla Pokemon an update. They gave him a burning form. Primal Groudon, first off, Groudon on its own is a really good Godzilla substitute. It doesn't look exactly like, it's not green like Tyrantrum is, but it's much larger, much heavier, has a lot more a variety to it, meaning it's ground type, so it can actually take out Tyrantrum pretty easy. It has fire attacks on its as well, it can still learn Hyper Beam, but then you give it its burning form, which is, it's Fire Godzilla. Let's be straight, it is Burning Godzilla. And I loved Burning Godzilla, man. And I love Groudon is my favorite Pokemon between Kyogre and Groudon. Like, that's just the way it shaped up to me. I liked it more. I liked Groudon more. Groudon was cooler. Kyogre is still a cool Pokemon, though. I'll have to redo I don't think I've actually ever done my top generations of Pokemon before. Generation 3 is among, I'm not saying if it is my favorite or not, but it's among my favorite generations overall of Pokemon in terms of their main games. I just thought it caught a great balance. The designs are great. And their legendaries were really cool. I love Groudon. And Primal Groudon is Burning Godzilla. It is Fire Godzilla. So there you go. It was the perfect end piece for this video. So just to reiterate, for the Team Godzilla, we have Tyranitar because it is a Godzilla Pokemon. Let's be frank. We have Tyrantrum because it does represent an ancient Pokemon that has been around for a long time. It was the king Pokemon, basically. And it is basically a dinosaur, which Godzilla kind of is. We have Volcarona to represent its relationship with Mothra, or Godzilla's relationship with Mothra, as well as the fact that in Legendary, it did add to Godzilla's fire form. We have Zygarde to represent the natural balance that Godzilla kind of seems to represent in a lot of these films, as well as the anime anime version of Godzilla being extremely overpowered. We have Dryalgae. I might be mispronouncing that name, by the way. Dryalgae to represent the fact that Godzilla is an aquatic kaiju, or at least a semi-aquatic kaiju, primarily living in the ocean, and is toxic due to his radiation. And finally, we have Primal Groudon to represent Burning Godzilla. And the fact that I would have put Groudon on the list regardless. It's still a very solid kaiju representation. But ultimately, that is my team for Godzilla. What is your team? Put it in the comments below and let me know. But that is Godzilla's team. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. I'll catch you folks later. I still got the box office to do and another what if, but right now my computer's battery is low. I need to take a shower. I need to eat. So I'm going to take a break for right now, and then we'll get back to it later on. So thanks for watching. See you later.